Hello again, friends, and welcome into another edition of Wrestling with Rusty right here on YouTube for March 16th, 2024. Welcome in. I want to talk about today on the stream Jim Cornette on AEW's legal disclaimer at live events. It's on YouTube titled just that way. Again, Jim Cornette on AEW's legal disclaimer at live events. Check that clip out on YouTube. And if you don't get to check that out, wait a few days and you'll hear the whole show on the Jim Cornette Experience, episode 523, that is on YouTube or wherever you get podcasts. But if you want to check out just the clip, again, the clip is Jim Cornette on AEW's legal disclaimer at live events. The reason for AEW now putting legal disclaimers at their live events is based on what Darby Allin did at Sting's retirement a few weeks back, in which Darby Allin went through a couple panes of glass during a spot at a show at Sting's retirement, and the glass shattered everywhere, and AEW is trying not to get sued. Well, first of all, if you go to a show and a wrestler falls in your lap, as has done with me before, even though I'm in a wheelchair, the truth of the matter is that you pretty much expect that sometime or whatever. But you don't go to a show, wrestling show or otherwise, and expect panes of glass to fall into your lap or cut you or anything like that. So AEW's disclaimer that they're now putting up at their shows, before their shows, and other places as well, saying that you may be hit with objects, not just glass, but with objects of any kind, and please be aware of that and guard yourself, or ever how they worded it legally. I'm just putting it in plain English. I don't know how they worded it legally, but that kind of stuff is not going to hold up in court if it goes to court, because nobody goes to a wrestling show expect to get hit with glass or other objects. That's number one. Number two, the buildings in which AEW rents will also be dragged into court with these things. And even if the buildings are not held responsible, since AEW just rents them, the buildings will have to at least testify at these events and stuff, taking resources away in time and money from the people that own the building. Therefore, they will be less likely to rent the building next time to AEW if they're called into court on one of these glass object things or any other object. Hell, AEW has been known to take pizza cutters and use them in wrestling matches now, sort of like GCW, Game Changer Wrestling, that does all those light tubes and thumbtacks and all that horse shit that they do. Here's a novelty concept. How about go back to wrestling in which people did not go through glass and tables every 2 minutes, and just do pro wrestling instead of doing pro wrestling through panes of glass where people can be hurt in the audience or whatever. And number 2 point that Jim Cornette brought up, what would happen if not only the audience got hurt, or Darby Allin, who did the spot, got hurt and died? They actually had a plan. I don't know what the plan was, but they actually had a plan in which if Darby Allin had not gotten up after the spot, how to go to the finish of the match later on. So pro wrestling is becoming stupid when you have to put out disclaimers about fans, please watch yourself for getting hit by glass. That's just stupid. I don't know how else to say it. And I know that some of you watching this video either live or on playback in the future are younger than me and did not get to see pro wrestling when pro wrestling was pro wrestling. and it actually was taken seriously and looked like a athletic competition, instead of just let's go to the local hardware store and get everything at a hardware store and come back and use it in a match like a trash can and everything else. Yes, during my day, there were hardcore matches. And yes, people hit people in the head with trash cans outside of an arena and stuff like that. But very rarely, if ever, did they bring objects like that inside the ring for fear of hurting the wrestler or the audience. And also, when you went through a table in my day, it was once in a while. It wasn't 2 or 3 times during a show. And now you go through tables 2 or 3 times during a show. And now you got these panes of glass. And by the way, I should have said this earlier. I'm not talking about stage glass or fake glass that they use when doing a play or something. I'm talking about real panes of glass. And Jim Cornette mentioned that could cut somebody's artery or other types of injuries. Darby Allin had to have multiple stitches. I'm not sure how many, but multiple stitches on, various things. And so even though Darby didn't die, he certainly, got hurt in the match. And he talked about, well, I want to make sure that Sting's retirement was very successful and all that. Sting's retirement in the Greensboro Coliseum in the heart of Jim Crockett Promotions NWA country would have been successful without using panes of glass. And if Darby Allin didn't know that, then shame on Darby Allin. But more importantly, shame on Tony Khan and AEW for letting anybody use glass or any other serious object like that, past, present, or future, including the pizza cutter items that they used a few years back on an AEW Dynamite. I see a person by the name of Joe Time in the comments that says, I never liked hardcore or extreme. Well, Joe, I never did either, buddy. And thank you for viewing my channel, and tell your friends to subscribe to the channel if you haven't subscribed already. And that goes for Joe or anybody else. But pro wrestling is getting too silly in certain ways, and it's getting too extreme in other ways, just for that pop of going, holy shit, holy shit, holy shit. How about we just go holy shit and they get in the ring and do old school pro wrestling, the good guy versus bad guy, or the good team versus the bad team, over the championship or love or money or position on the card or girlfriends or whatever, instead of going through panes of glass, pizza cutters, and God knows whatever else. Al Snow, the professional wrestler Al Snow, recently said on a Vince Russo podcast about a week or two ago that AEW is going to continue and someone will die on live television. I hope that is not true, of course. I don't want anybody to die. Even if I don't like their brand of wrestling, I don't want anybody to die. But I believe Al Snow might be correct. And I think Jim Cornette has said it before too. But whether you've said it or not, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure out that somebody is going to die if they keep doing these GCW and now AEW extreme type spots in these wrestling matches. Somebody is going to either die or get seriously injured. And I am full-time in a wheelchair due to cerebral palsy. I was not injured in the sense that I was born with cerebral palsy. That's the only way you can get CP. But you can be paralyzed, just like Droz from the WWE was. Droz has since died a few years ago, but originally Droz was paralyzed in the 90s when, by accident, D'Lo Brown, real name A.C. Connor, did not have Droz up for, I think it was a pile driver or a power slam, one of those. I'm not sure which one. And Droz slipped out of D'Lo Brown's hands too early, and D'Lo tried to catch him and finish the move, and Droz got his neck broken and became permanently paralyzed, and ended up in a wheelchair in worse shape than even I am from birth. So, I mean, that was an accident. But in this case, with the panes of glass, that's not an accident. That's an intentional spot. They even had a backup plan as to what they were going to do with the finish had Darby Allin not got up. I don't know what that plan was, but either way, it's stupid. Absolutely, positively, downright stupid. And somebody's going to get hurt, injured. Well, that's the same as hurt, or die, or a combination of all the above. But back to the legal ramifications. As the old joke goes, Judge Judy would have this shit wrapped up in 30 minutes. Because even though AEW puts out that legal disclaimer that Jim Cornette is talking about, I repeat the clip on YouTube that says Jim Cornette on AEW's legal disclaimer at live events. Go check out that clip on YouTube. Even though they put out that disclaimer is not going to hold up in court when and if AEW or the building management or both are sued if an accident happens at one of these shows. And not to mention the bad publicity you're going to get in the media for the same type of thing, especially if somebody dies. So pro wrestling is getting so far from what I knew it to be and what I grew up at the age of 3, and now I'm 55, so that'd be 52 years around pro wrestling, where people just, have gotten so far out of bounds in what they do. I mean, when is enough enough? And I see Joe here says, I'm sorry, Joe. Forgive me. I got to read this slower. I lost interest in modern wrestling when they went to the gutter for their audience during beer, vulgar language, and the middle finger in front of children. Joe, I agree with you. Most call that the Attitude Era, in which WWE became real popular. But even if they might have done that before then, they've certainly done it a little bit after that, not WWE, but other places. So I agree with you, Joe, that wrestling is becoming too extreme, and that's why I'm doing a video on this. I mean, Al Snow was right when he said on Russo's podcast recently that somebody's going to die, and if they don't die, they're going to get seriously injured. And then you'll hear AEW or whoever else come out and say, "Oh, what an unfortunate accident, and we're sorry this happened." Blah 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 blah. But by then, it's going to be too late. So, I mean, Tony Khan of AEW and the Jacksonville Jaguars and all their other interests also have reasons not to do this. But the reality is the performers in AEW are getting to do whatever the hell they want to, sometimes no matter how extreme that is. So, I mean, when is enough enough? But go and check out Jim Cornette's clip on YouTube. Please tell your friends to like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already. The comments are now open. I thank Joe for his comments and anybody else that wants to comment on this at a later date when they watch it back on recording. I'll now look at the comments and try to respond. For those of you that would like to email me, you can email me at rusty, R-U-S-T-Y, .loudermilk, spelled L-O-U-D-E-R-M-I-L-K. You must put a dot between the first name and the last name, otherwise it's not going to go through. rusty.loudermilk@yahoo.com, or you can call me by cell phone, no texting please, 724-826-0449. Thank you for your past, present, and future support. Tell your friends to support the channel. I don't make $1 off of this. I do it as a labor of love. So please spread the word for me. Thank you for the comments that I got on the phone concerning my late friend and the passing of one of the owners of Jim Crockett Promotions, NWA, back in the day, Jackie Crockett, who was also an NWA and WCW cameraman. He went to work for WCW after the sale of Jim Crockett Promotions in 1988. Jackie passed away just a couple of days ago. Rest in peace, Jackie. Rest in peace, Abe Jacobs. Rest in peace, my friend Ivan Koloff. And rest in peace, Don Kernodle. And rest in peace, Ole Anderson. But for today's purpose, one last comment on the video, then I'll close out. I see there are 4 people in here watching this live now. Thank you for your support, ladies and gentlemen. I really appreciate it. But modern wrestling has gone too far. And when is too far enough? Do we have to wait until somebody dies or gets injured? I certainly hope not. Please spread the word for my channel, please. Give me a call, 724-826-0449, or email me, rusty.loudermilk@yahoo.com. I'm also looking for a co-host to be a co-host on this channel so that I won't have to work by myself anymore. I can't pay you any money unless you go out and get sponsorships. But if you want to be a co-host, please feel free to call me or email me, and we'll discuss that as well. That's going to do it for me, Rusty. I'm out of here. We'll see you next time with another edition of Wrestling with Rusty right here on YouTube. And until we meet again, my friends, as the voice of Ring of Honor, Ian Riccaboni would say, happy wrestling, everybody, and thank you for your support. I sound like a politician.